Dr. Sohail, I mean, NZF, the National Zakat Foundation, more or less transformed the domestic zakat giving. And that was really inspired by the fact, 'cause I remember those early conversations on, we should give locally, because there is a lot of poverty locally, right? And I know, gosh, how many years now we're in. For you, I think it'd be really good for everybody here to hear, how much dependency is there from the community in local zakat giving, but how is that zakat being used to transform lives? And of course, the idea with zakat is about dignity. So when people are in need, we don't want to rob them of their dignity, because the challenge of social mobility is you live in a cycle where you believe, that can't be me. Our family has never had anyone go to university. We've never done jobs like that. And changing the mindset can be very difficult. And someone who's taking zakat means that they're in a very low socioeconomic bracket. How have you grappled with the challenge of giving people who really need it so they still feel the dignity, but also helping to transform their lives? And maybe just a bit of insight as to what zakat's looking like today.
Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You talked about the beginning of NZF and changing the scene, so I find it quite relevant to note that NZF actually started because of stories of homeless Muslim women in Birmingham, actually. So the concept, the need, and the drive actually started from the city. The very first marketing campaign, or one of the very early ones, the tagline was, "What's the point of 3 million Muslims if Aisha has to sleep on the street?" And so that's just where the story started. It actually did start with women, actually, which is maybe a topic we can also talk a bit more about. And the story has been ongoing. In terms of what local zakat looks like in the UK, what I've noticed is that obviously there's a lot of undercover zakat that has always been going on, and it keeps going on, through hand-to-hand distributions, through auntie networks and the like. But there's a growing interest now in the UK, and I've been traveling a fair bit now, of people trying to really organize real local zakat. And organizing real local zakat is the priority of National Zakat Foundation. What do I mean by real local zakat? What I mean by that is that in our Islamic sacred law, the sunnah of zakat is that it's distributed in the city where people live. That speaks to us needing to build an entire infrastructure in every single Muslim community. Because you can't have real localized zakat without every city, every settlement, every community having people you can trust to know really who the Muslims are in the area, so they're not left behind, really what their needs are their needs being met, and can we distribute in a dignified way? And so NZF is coming to Birmingham very soon in this more localized, local leadership model, where we've been speaking with local mosques and local centers. People here in all of our communities are extremely active. We also shouldn't downplay the firefighting that happens. There's incredible firefighting that's happening in our communities. Food banks are having a demand that we've never seen before. Homeless shelters having a demand we've never seen before. Mosque volunteers are doing incredible work. And so just to say that we have to, this question of social mobility, especially for our community, is about building the plane while flying it. And it's not just about individual success stories, which are, every one is very important, but it's about systems change for our entire community. We're invested in that systems change at National Zakat Foundation, and it will take time. But just to say very brief, and again, you can develop it on, but we are developing models. We are coming to Birmingham to work with very active leading mosques so that they can have dignified, grassroots, face-to-face, community-based zakat distribution. Last thing about what you said before I pass it back was the advantage that NZF has built to date is that people can ask for help all over the country. You can apply online. We will review your paperwork and your details. We'll give you support wherever you are at the most remote part of the country. The advantage of that system is that people don't have to be embarrassed in front of people that they know. And I very frequently bump into people in very strange places. There was a train worker in St. Albans who had been helped through zakat, and he mentioned that, and he was working there at the station. There was a lady I met at a dinner in Bradford who, she didn't want to open up, but I think she went through domestic violence problems. We helped her resettle, and she came back to that dinner only to make a large payment to give back into the pot so that somebody else could be helped.
Thank you both so much. And I think you really, obviously, we would never really grasp to the depth that that work really goes on, but also that it started with homelessness right here on our doorstep. So coming back to Ian, so you and I have been on many travels.
We have.
And I'd like to congratulate Ian on two things. One is I said, have you ever been to a mosque? And I said, there's one mosque you definitely have to go to. So off we went to Cambridge. Has anybody visited Cambridge? Yeah, I think it was pretty. What did you think, Ian?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
So we had him sold, near conversion, but didn't make it all the way. Then,
There's still time, Zara.
We're
There's
still time, thank you, Ian. And then the second one was, did I ever think in my life that in Ramadan at 4 in the morning, I'd be on a video call to Ian Elliot from PwC because he decided he was going to be fasting that day, and I was his Ramadan buddy. So can we give a round of applause for Ian for fasting this year now? And the reason I mentioned those two things is to do you justice, Ian, because we've been talking for a while, because one of the challenges and also one of the opportunities is in allyship. Right?
Yeah.
So we all need sometimes a way in. And often when you go into a workplace, I mean, my background was in law, big drinking culture, you know, it's that whole idea of, okay, I want to go and change my life, but I can't see myself there. And people like me don't get that job, don't get included. And I remember we joked around people, you know, this could be the first earner in the house on a proper salary.
And that's very often the case.
And the question that I really had to pose to you is, what is you as PwC doing, particularly for this audience, to make it more inclusive for Muslim communities? And I know that we've had some turbulence in the Middle East, and I think you've been doing some amazing work in challenging that. Talking about how do we keep our diverse Muslim employees with us, engaged, and progressing, particularly when it's challenging, and how do we make them feel part of a team when, yeah, we need to pray, Ian, we've got halal food, we've got a few things that we need, but as the Sheikh Nuru and others have said, you know, being inclusive is important, but we've got to do it in partnership. So really good hearing from you on some of those. And congratulations.
Thank you. So I think for me, when we talk about being inclusive, what that really means is having attracted some of the wonderful talent that we have in our firm, and increasingly from a variety of different backgrounds, because we've changed the criteria to join us, so you can join us straight from school now. You don't need a degree. You don't need a certain level of a degree. We have lots of apprenticeships, and it's starting to work in terms of attracting people in. But then when people join us, I want us to feel like they can. For me, being inclusive means that you can show up every day feeling comfortable in who you are, not feeling that you have to change who you are to be some PwC clone. You know, do I have to be like this guy here who I see? Is that the only way I'm going to progress? So, and the allyship, the reason the allyship is so important is that it's, we need to sort of understand each other better. We see such a polarized world, don't we? We see it every day. We're seeing it play out at the moment, aren't we? In some of the campaigning we're seeing, shall I say. Helping each other to understand each other better and what makes us different and what makes us special is so important. So, to give you an example of that, we have a number of very active people networks at our firm, one of which is our Muslim network. And you've been kind enough to come to some of the events that our Muslim network runs. Now, clues in the title, that network is open to all the Muslims in our firm. It's also open to everybody else. Because it's not just about, it's about creating a safe space in one way, but it's also about giving everyone else in our firm the opportunity to understand what being a Muslim is all about. And that's what the Ramadan Challenge is about. You know, it's not just about people like me sort of fasting for a day, even though for me, that's the second time I've done it, and it's incredible. It puts you in such a better place to understand what everyone is sacrificing, but the pure joy that comes with it. You know, because I'd never really bothered to think about it, I just looked at it and I assumed it was something that was going to be so hard you wouldn't look forward to. And now, of course, I know it's a time of celebration and joy and getting together and bringing families together. And we want to help everybody else to understand all of that. And you mentioned the tensions in the Middle East, and the Muslim network was incredibly important for us in terms of being able to talk to everyone about what they were going through. you know, everything that's been happening since then. We have a very active Jewish network too. We have lots of other faith networks, and they do lots of sort of great work together in sort of understanding each other, what their faiths are about, what's important to them. And that's what inclusion is really all about, because that then helps people to progress in our firm without changing who they are. And that's the most important thing. There's no point just recruiting lots of people who then spend a couple of years at an organisation like ours and think, well, this place is just not for me. They told me it was inclusive, but it's not really. And it can't be about that. It's got to be about helping people progress and then having all their friends and others in their family wanting to aspire to maybe do something similar.
Well, they kept you for a long time, so
well, yeah, they
you
can't
must
get
be
rid of
quite
me.
good at it. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Sohail, and then we're going to open it to the audience, so do think of your questions. I think the critical question of this panel is, what can we do about it? You know, from your point of view, I think safe to say, given a cost of living crisis, NZF has been pretty busy. There's a lot of giving, and mashallah, we're a very generous community, so there's a lot of donating. But the cycle of giving and receiving, in some ways, what about progressing? And from your point of view, what can the community be doing to really utilize, obviously this hardship is really important and relief, but that social mobility, how do we transform it so we even maybe change a mindset as to how we approach the problem?
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Give you the hard one.
I'll start and then maybe Ian can wrap up. But in terms of, I talked earlier about systems change. So I just want to give a few remarks about systems and the system and the moment that we're occupying. I think it's not lost on all of us that our welfare system is struggling. That's just the bottom line for all communities. Muslim communities are disproportionately represented by that. It's unclear how we're going to come out of this into a stronger sort of social welfare net. National Zakat Foundation is committed to the idea that our Islamic sacred law has guidelines and teachings for us that are good for us. At the heart of our Islamic sacred law is the sense that what we have to, part of systems change, is we've kind of been brought up thinking, well, it's the government's job, it's their job. You know, I just got me, my life, my nuclear family, and I'm just trying so hard to pay off my mortgage. What else am I supposed to be responsible for? So there's this long-going system almost of outsourcing your almost social responsibility to structures that are kind of crumbling, whether we like to use that word or not. In the Islamic sacred law, at the part of systems change is the sense that, no, you are responsible for your community. And that's at the heart of our educational impetus. At National Zakat Foundation, but I think for all of us, and for the reason for our being here today, people have to feel literally, morally responsible for the welfare of their communities. Now, you can't solve the whole nation's problems, but what's came up a lot in what you've said earlier, your Bradford example, in the Edgbaston example, you can take responsibility for what's around you. Yeah. And that's at the heart of the, like I said, the localization of zakat that is in our sunnah. It's in the teachings of Islamic sacred law, that every community is responsible for their own. No one should be left behind. We have seen escalating demand for help at National Zakat Foundation. So like this Ramadan, the average was 1 every 3 minutes. It's like it's mad to keep up with. But I'm convinced most of the people suffering are suffering actually in silence. They haven't come forward yet to apply. And I think we're failing them if we can't create systems that catch them. And you can't do that without localizing the work, without developing a local impetus of that we are responsible, without giving you the ability to take part. We talk about social mobility upwards, but what I'm seeing a lot of, which I'm going to also come to, but is that people want to help in the communities and they don't know how. They want to mobilize into community service. That's part of the systems puzzle. How can we create opportunities for people who are professionals, but they want to do more, and the community has needs? So that's part of the systems development. And so what we really have to develop is the fact that we can stand together, we can stand strong, there is need, but if we create communal responsibility, we will start journeys for people. So even if, for example, one zakat grant can't solve all of an individual's problem, but if we give it in a way that we've connected them with the local community solidarity network, they start a journey in community. So can you see, everybody? There's no way around all of us taking part. There's no way around all of us providing the opportunities. It's not somebody else's problem, it's our problem. All that's missing is how do we connect our networks? And so the biggest gap actually is a gap of awareness. People aren't aware of need. People aren't aware of what they can do. And if we could bridge the gap of awareness, create these localized networks of knowledge and opportunity and volunteering, I think the community is so generous, people so want to give. If we tied the awareness gaps, I think we'd create really a communal revolution, and wider society is looking for this, community-led solidarity and responsibility. So that's just in terms of what I meant by systems change. But I don't know if you'd like to add something to that as well.
Yeah, I think to build on that from a unemployment perspective, if you like, that's exactly how we're going to sort of solve what we have already looming very large in this country, which is related very starkly to social mobility, which is a skills problem. So, you know, our young people are not being given the opportunity to develop the skills that they're going to need to succeed going forward. And the way we're going to crack this is by businesses like ours, but not just big businesses, small ones as well, working with community, working with schools, working with universities, working with local authorities, working with other businesses, and ultimately in partnership with government too, to think about, you know, from a much earlier age, what are the skills that our young people are going to need to thrive and fulfill all the amazing potential that they've got. Because at the moment, I mean, the schools are doing everything they can with hardly any money, as we know. So we have to lean into that. You know, we're lucky enough to have the sort of scale, and it's our responsibility to lean into that and start to change a little bit of what of the skills that young people are being taught. And because all the things that are going to be so relevant to them are so relevant to the challenges that you're dealing with as well. You know, sort of leadership, resilience, social relevance, flexibility, agility, all of these things, as life gets ever more complicated, are what is going to help our young people to thrive. And that will help social mobility too. I'm an optimistic person like I think you are. That will help us on the social mobility journey too, because it will start to give people, young people more of an understanding and an opportunity, I think.
Okay, brilliant. Shall we take some questions? If we can get some hands up and name, yeah, we've got loads. We'll do 3 at a time. And she said there's some water, so like, okay, brace yourself. But yeah, if you want to introduce your name, that would be great, and just keep it nice and concise. Thanks.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum and hi. My name's Mahira Jabeen, and I had a question for the panel. Considering the topic today is leading change, we're talking about inclusivity and we're talking about supporting each other. Actually, the research shows, if you look at Harvard Business Review, 95% of people think they're self-aware, only 10 to 15% actually are. And even Sheikh Noor said that actually change has to start within yourself. So how do we address that common issue where self-awareness is seen as quite woolly? So even in corporate companies, people don't really want to look at that nitty-gritty, but it starts with the self. So I just wondering if you had some insight or some examples that you share where we could collectively work together in leading change.
Okay, brilliant. And some more hands. We can take 2 more. Name, there's one at the front, over here. Well, and there's one over there. Yeah, okay, we'll go for you. This is okay. So we're going to go to the back there, and then I'll come to you after.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. My name's Aslam Alavi. I'm the West Ham fan who was mentioned earlier. I've got a question that obviously we've got lots of right-wingers who are given platforms to kind of say, you know, this is too much is going towards one way. So how do we keep that balance to make sure, yes, whilst we provide platforms for minority communities, how do we make sure that everyone still feels a part of it rather than sort of creating those divisive channels for these people to then kind of bounce on? Because I'll tell you what, if certain characters who were given these platforms were sat here, they would say, oh, look at these Muslims, they kind of do it, taking over everything. So it's keeping that balance and making sure that our communities stay integrated and, you know, everyone feels a part of the program.
Brilliant. So self-awareness and dealing with exclusion. It was the late. Oh, okay. Okay. So we'll go there and then we'll come to you after. Oh no. Okay. We're just going to take both of you. you? We'll just take both of you because, yeah, off you go.
Thank you. I just had a question for Ian.
Your name as well.
Yes, my name is Sabah Shafi. My husband and I actually both work at PwC in Birmingham. Oh, wow. So it's really nice to see you here today. I just had a comment, really. What I've noticed new to the firm is actually that the inclusion and diversity processes in place, I've noticed are you know, very different to any companies that I've been at before. You know, there's lots of things in place to make people feel like they're a part of the team, the wider team. So I think that's a really good point that I've noticed coming new into the firm. I just wanted to ask you what PwC as a firm are doing to help social mobility upwards and to grow within the company so that people stay long term. I know you've been there for many years and a lot of the senior members of PwC that I've met have been. So how do you plan to keep people in the company long term and help them grow to the very top from these kind of communities? Thank you.
Okay, great. We'll just stop there because I think that's a lot. Or okay, just ask the question. Just ask it. Yeah, I'm gonna write it down.
Assalamu alaikum.
Because so you're keeping count.
My apologies if I offend by this question, particularly to Dr. Sohail. Mashallah, there's people like Dr. Hadi and others that represent the wonderful philanthropic work that happens from the UK. And it's been something that I've been kind of asking for many years. You know, we hear the Imam saying on Friday, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan, commanding justice and doing good and giving to those that are kind of nearly connected to us, usually taken to mean relatives. But how can we change the mindset without alienating our traditional donors to accept the charity begins at home? And what can we do as philanthropic organization, whether it's the large ones like Ummah Welfare, Islamic Relief and others, and NZF, as well as the smaller outfits that are involved in collecting the donations and distributing further afield? Are we creating a culture of dependency, or are we really enabling people locally to be self-sustainable, particularly when the welfare state, like you've said, is crumbling?
Okay, great. No, those are really good questions, actually. Okay, so we'll split it up. I think, Ian, it'd be good to start with you. So there was a question around that kind of self-awareness, but also on social mobility upwards. And then if there's, obviously there was a point made around exclusionary voices and tackling that. And then obviously there was around how we change zakat and traditional donors. So do you want to pick on some of those key points?
So they're great questions, thank you. So self-awareness, well, I talked about skills earlier, and I think you're so right in the thrust of your question is that most of us are not as self-aware as we ought to be, and as we think we are, because that's kind of self-fulfilling, isn't it? So I think a lot of this is about giving people access to sponsorship. So this comes to it's great to see you here. It comes to a bit of your question about how we help people sort of progress upwards through the firm once they've joined us from a lower socioeconomic background. So sponsorship and having the opportunity to speak to people more experienced than you who have been through the sort of ups and downs of building a career is so important.
And sponsorship is not the traditional sponsorship.
No, sorry, no. So I mean
corporate language.
Yeah, so corporate, you might call it a bit more like coaching, mentorship. So we really encourage all of our senior people at PwC to spend time with people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. You know, for some of our fantastic female talent, you know, who don't have the same. The reason there are lots of senior people at PwC who look a bit like me is that, you know, we're kind of full of confidence, right? And we're always telling people, actually I'm not like this, but as you know, but there are lots of people who are always ready to say, oh, I'm ready to be promoted, you know, I'm ready, constantly ready. Whereas people from different backgrounds, they don't feel that. They constantly feel like they're having to struggle to keep up, and I hate it that people are feeling like that. So what we try to do is give them access to people who've been through all sorts of different experiences and have had ups and downs, and who have developed that self-awareness through trying lots of different things, and they don't always work, right? There's nothing wrong with making mistakes as long as you learn from them. So that sort of sponsorship, coaching, mentorship is so important to building self-awareness, and we're on a journey around that at PwC, and we're sort of encouraging others to do the same. And that's part of the answer to your question about how we're going to help people to progress. We did a piece of work earlier this year with 25 of our new joiners from lower socioeconomic backgrounds who started with us in September. And we got them to keep a diary for the first 6 to 8 weeks that they were with us, just so we could capture the richness of their experiences and how they were feeling. And the sort of results of that show you that you make so many assumptions about how people are going to behave and how they're going to be treated. So some of the things that came out of it just make you want to despair. But had a kid who just joined us here in Birmingham, actually, and first person in his family ever to work in an organisation like this, like ours, sorry. And he said all the sort of partners and the senior people that he worked with, all they wanted to talk about was their cars and their ski holidays. And he's like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. I've never been skiing. I don't. And it sounds, it's sort of, on one level it might sound funny, but it's not, because it goes to the exclusion that people experience all the time. It immediately makes them feel, oh, well, this place isn't for me because I don't even know what you're talking about. So how can I build networks? We always say to people, it's so important that you come to events like this, get to know people, build your networks. That's how you'll start to succeed. But how can I do that if I can't even get into the conversation? So there's a lot about helping people to understand each other better. And that goes to the exclusion question as well, I think.
Really, really powerful, and you wouldn't even know, but you're so right. And Dr. Sohail, I guess the fundamental question for you was, how do you keep the traditional base and not people feel excluded and keep, I guess that is your job, isn't it, day to day now, dealing with that question.
No, it is. And also the question on exclusion as well. I wanted to talk a little bit to that one as well. If I can actually start with that one. The idea you talked about right wing and too much money going to one side and not to the other side, is we need to make sure that we really represent very clearly and unequivocally that one community thriving is good for all of community. I mean, there's no way around it. So that idea of, people feeling uncomfortable with the success stories of a minority, we have to tackle that by showing, no, their success is everybody's success. We had a report we released just before Ramadan at National Zakat Foundation where we showed that £1 we spend to keep someone in housing has an economic value of £73. And the reason for that is it is so much more expensive to rehouse somebody homeless than just to keep them in housing. And so if you can say then we are saving the public expenditure millions upon millions upon millions of pounds, or for example last year we redistributed just within London about £4 million. If you take that out, it's not you replace it with 4 million, you replace it with multiple times more because of the cost of that welfare structure for, not being so easy to replace. So we have to be really clear in showing really through data and not just through stories, the fact that any community thriving will always be good for all of community. And if Muslim communities are in the most deprived areas, if we can have cash moving in those areas, if we can have jobs for people in those areas, we are uplifting and supporting entire local authorities. And you're all aware of the phenomenon of local authorities on the verge of bankruptcy across the country. So just to be really explicit about that it's not, it is everyone's success to see the poorer and the marginalized succeeding. And I'm sure that you'll agree with that with all of what you've been doing. And in terms of the charity conversation, all I'd like to say is that our sacred law has a spectrum of opinions which gives us room. And our scholars always said the disagreement of scholars is a mercy for our community. So on the question of localizing zakat, all scholars agree that it's the essential nature of the institution, but there's a lot of debate around what if there's greater need overseas, what if your family are overseas, and so on. And that gives us room to maneuver as a community, because we are wealthy, and there are a lot of needs overseas as well. And so what I'd say is what we have to talk is the language not of either or, but the language of both and every. Our sacred law of our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, it never spoke about focusing on one tie to the exclusion of others, but it was this idea of seeing to all of your ties. Tie of family, tie of neighborliness, tie of ummah, Tie. Every tie, someone you've met with. Again, our Prophet ﷺ, how much he honored the friends of his deceased wife, because that was a tie. Or the tie of the wet nursing family is a tie. So we just need to have a narrative of, we have ties, no tie should be blocked out to the exclusion of others. Our resources are limited and we will have to do our best. Speaking about Dr. Hani and Islamic Relief, because he was also named, is that Islamic Relief have been actually very much at the forefront of the international relief agencies who are putting aside zakat for local distribution. And they've been distributing zakat through NZF in the UK for a number of years. And we've been also recently partnering with them specifically for caring for Gazan refugees, where we've worked together for really ongoing support for the refugees who are coming out of Gaza. NZF, we're having conversations with a number of international relief agencies to say, let's come together. We have some need here. We are specializing for UK distribution. Why don't you have some of your zakat earmarked for local distribution? And so if I can say that here as well, if anybody is here, part of an international relief agency, please do come and talk. It's not about either or, it's not about competition. It's how do we see to all of our ties, and the tie of neighborliness is an important tie. Similarly, while I'm here as well, I've talked about investing in local leadership and local infrastructure. If there are people here representing local mosques, local community groups, I'd be very keen to see how we can work and support you. There's no competition in this conversation at all. We're just trying to do our part to see to our ties, and the tie of faith and tie of zakat is what we are specializing in. And one last thing, you've talked about the very small projects. I know you're part of a local marriage project. You've been leading on also foster care projects. So it's just that we need, maybe this is where again MCB can help almost coordinate our local needs. Here, yeah. Well, exactly. So almost you are the exact convener to bring these various conversations together.
It's what inspired the conference, because I realized so much disparate good work going on, but nobody talking.
Yeah.
So we have time for maybe like 1.5 questions. So let's see, we've got 2 quickies and that's it. And from maybe this, okay, this gentleman, and then over at the back, that's it. So can we get a yeah, over here, now over here at the front, and then the lady at the back. Yeah, we're gonna over here, just over here. Yeah. It's gonna translate, okay?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sami. I'm from an organisation called Deaf World, and I've got an interesting question for both of you. So, PwC and NZF, how do you guys make your organisations accessible for the deaf community, like employment or information and social mobility within your organisations? Also with the zakat work that you're talking about, how do you really reach out to the deaf community? Yeah, that's my question for you guys.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. Thank you. And the lady at the back, you're making Naim run all the way to you. So I don't know if we should applaud him or give him a drum roll. It's going to take a bit of time. While we're... yeah, give him a clap, guys. He's got so much... Yeah, there we go. It's about good calorie count there. Yes, sister, please tell us your name and your question. Keep it very
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shaista Mukaddam. I'm from Birmingham City University, and I launched the first ever BSc in Accounting and Islamic Finance. I can see Dr. Sohail going like this, and I was going to give a comment that these are too tall for us to see you from here.
It's the flower. I was trying to touch the flower.
Do you want me to make him stand? I'll make him stand, don't worry.
So maybe for the next time we'll, I will give feedback, but thank you for such a lovely event. What I was saying is children now learn differently. And we have the 6 weeks of the summer. We have to start early and talk to the youngsters. Because my own son, coming from a very, middle-income family, he went to a school. He came back and he said, the Midland Sailing Club is only for the white people. It's not for me. So we have to start this kind of changing the mindset and making them inclusive right from school. Plus, we have the 6 weeks window in the summer. So can we all collaborate in some way and use that period to work with the youngsters to start this conversation? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sister. And we'll take that on board with the flowers. So can we go to this very important question, I guess, and both reflections, and we'll wrap up there. But yeah, so what are we doing to support, I guess, deaf, disabled, and communities that need a little bit more help?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have something called the Staff Diversity Council at PwC, and I know other large firms like ours will maybe have something similar. And we have representatives from the deaf community on that council. So we talk to them and we hear from them all the time about what we can do better and what we can do differently in our recruitment processes, for example. So we've changed some of those. If you're an event like this at PwC, there'd be captions. So yeah, there'd be AI captions, which normally works. I mean, not always, but normally. So people from the deaf community will be able to sort of at least get close to sort of what's going on and what the discussion is. Same that's been done here with the signing. So, and we've done the same with some of our neurodiverse colleagues. For example, we've got some amazing training called Great Minds Don't Think Alike, which is based on, it's in animation. You may have seen it, people from PwC here, and it just gives you an insight into what it's like to be neurodiverse and the sorts of thoughts that you go through, experiences you go through, even getting to work on your commute and so on, and then which bit of the office is going to work best for you. You can't just go and sit sometimes around lots of noise and so on. So we do the same with the deaf community. So this is all about, as I said earlier, about helping people to show up as you are and not feeling like you have to conform to something that you don't want to.
Brilliant. And Dr. Sohail, on that one?
Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. It's got me thinking, actually. So first of all...
And even if you haven't, maybe we could implement some things.
Yeah, no, exactly. So in terms of our basic offering, which I said, which most of our money is distributed and accessed actually through online applications, you never actually have to actually speak or listen or communicate with someone in that sense. As long as you can read, you can upload documentation. If we have questions, we will send you questions. We'll make sure the support reaches you wherever you are. If it's a bank transfer, you can get it through your bank or through the post office. If it's a housing support, we will pay the relevant party on your behalf. If it's a training course, we'll pay for the training course for you. And so actually, for the deaf community, actually it's quite accessible, actually. But you've got me thinking about other forms of disability, where, for example, if you were blind, obviously you would need someone to help you to work through that process. You got me thinking about, I've spoken a lot today about empowering grassroots and local projects as the future of working with local leadership. We do check all of our partners for, we look for their governance, we check their safeguarding, we look for disability access. But I think so far the focus would have been on physical disability access. And so I think definitely it's got me thinking, and I'll definitely see how we can work for empowering this further going forward. But thank you very much. I really appreciate the question very much.
No, thank you so much. So we have to wrap it up there. Hopefully our guests will be lurking around for your questions. I think someone should definitely ask PwC about AI and the amount of investment going into that, because that's going to change everything, really. And there is a lot of investment going into that. But can we give a massive round of applause to our fantastic guests? On behalf of the Muslim Council of Britain, personally, my thank you, and you've come all the way. I know you just came literally back from holiday on a Sunday as well to be here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for the commitment PwC has to British Muslim communities and empowerment. Dr. Sohail, you've got a lot of work to do, and we are partners in that work, and thank you for sharing and giving us the insight to the reality, which is pretty difficult, but obviously the opportunity to change it. And that's all from us on this panel, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.